Well, folks, Bruce here from the Coasters Club, and I'm with Mike Keenan, and Mike is unbelievably well known. He's a huge part of the Coasters Club, and with the help he gives us, a great mate of Mark Crompton's, and it's fair to say that there wouldn't be many community organisations on the coast that don't know Mike Keenan. And he's just been made something in the squash club in Christchurch, which I'm going to ask him about. Mike, thanks very much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Now, what's your full name?
Michael David Keenan.
Did you have a nickname when you were growing up?
I did actually. They called me Mickey Ducks, MD.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Mickey Ducks.
Yeah.
Hey, where were you born?
I was born in Hokitika. Yep. Up at the Western Hospital.
Right.
Yep.
How many years ago?
What year? The 27th of 10th, 1949. So had my birthday a couple of days ago.
Oh, so
I'm 69.
You're not?
Yep.
So you're older than me?
Yeah.
You look younger. Who are your mum and dad?
Mick and Arlie Keenan. My dad owned the railway hotel over there for the Burries quite some years at the railway, and we were brought up in Sewell Street, and we moved down when I was about 9 down to the railway hotel.
So the railway, that was on the corner where NPD are now?
We're just over across the road here from the council building.
Oh, dear,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, the railway across here?
Yeah.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Look, I hadn't known that. So you were brought up there?
Yeah, I had the corner little place out on the balcony, and I had a fire escape that I could come and go on.
So when did your mum and dad meet?
They met, Mum was a nurse up at the Seaview Hospital, psychiatric nurse, and Dad was out of Woodstock. He was brought up in a big family of 12 in those days, and yeah, he looked after took over the Royal Mail Hotel, and in the early or the late 1940s, and then they moved into town.
So hoteliers for a long time?
Yeah, well, he took over from his mother because his mother had, 12 children, but her husband got killed by a piece of wood, and he was 43, and in those days bringing up 12 kids with no benefits at all, they all had to fly the coop and get out and work.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So when you come home from the home, where was your first home?
My first home was actually in Sewell Street, right next door to where I live.
No.
Yeah, true.
On the northern side?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so we had the two-storey place. Yeah.
When you were a kid, Mike, what'd you do for fun? I mean, these days, kids wander around and they make sure they've got their phone with them and their iPad. What did you do? Can you remember growing up?
Yeah, the only time I come home back home was to have a feed, a meal. I went out and played all day, and I think back to the days that I had an old bike, and I biked out to Kawaka, up that gravel road and swam in the swimming hole and down the river, fishing or whatever it may be. And yet today, we're too protective of the kids. I mean, I only come home when I was hungry, and worn out.
It's a very familiar story there too. Now, was there a chore that you hated doing when you were growing up?
I dare say we had to have turns to doing the dishes, and it was the sort of thing that taught you that you had to share, because there were 6 of us in our family, 3 boys and 3 girls. So we all had to sit up at the dinner table and eat, and we weren't allowed to leave the dinner table until we've eaten our meals. And when you think back at some of those meals, you think, holy hell, there was courage sausages, tripe and onions, and you begrudgingly ate it or swallowed it or whatever it may be, but you did eat it because, your parents weren't wealthy or rich, or you didn't have much choices in those days.
And Mum had spent all day on the stove?
Yeah, she did, and every Sunday we had a roast mutton, and we had trifle and cream on a Sunday. It was a treat for us, basically, and it's a wonder that we weren't alcoholics, because Mum used to pour the brandy and the sherry and the trifle. It used to soak up the sponge in those days, so yeah, it was quite a treat, really.
Were you a bit of a reader?
No, I didn't do much reading. I was more of an outdoor person. I sort of enjoyed sport more than anything, so I got involved in lots and lots of sport early in my life, and I was very fortunate, by meeting lots of people through sport, and it taught you great lessons, really.
Where did you attend primary school?
I went to St Mary's Primary, and then I went across to St Mary's High School, and after I left they pulled it down actually. Just joking.
There'd be a reason for that. And so you would have been at St Mary's when all of those gorgeous girls from Buller came down here to the high school.
Yeah,
that were boarders.
Yeah, they were boarders, and we had boarders from all over the place, from southwestern all the way through, and they were lovely people. You know, friendships were very, very good, and of course the boarders were, you know, instituted really basically in those days with the nuns, and yeah, so they were very nice, very polite because they had to be.
Now, when you left primary school, you obviously went to high school. Where did you go there?
I went and worked for Matt Siren for a...
No, which high school did you go to?
Oh, sorry, what high school? I went to St Mary's High School, just across the road where the pensioners' flats are now.
Oh, so there's a high school in there?
Yeah, and they had a chapel there as well, and they had the whole of that area, and it was a sports ground, a woodwork room, and, you know, classrooms as well.
Was that the chapel that Mr. Burgess pulled down when he bought it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
And a lady from down at Wanaka or something bought the old stairways and lovely wood. It was Father Bill Middleton and also Maury Roberts that they sold it. You know, they were going to scrap it and everything else, but he turned up and made money out of it.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, after you left school, did you go to university or take up a trade?
No, I actually went and worked for Matt Siren for a year, and poor old Matt passed away last week, and he was my first boss, and I ended up, you know, as a carpenter's labourer really, and then after that I was offered a job as a postman downstairs here in this building where the Western District Council is today.
Right.
So being a postman was a great life for me, because you could come and do 2 or 3 hours work, and then you could go and do whatever you liked, and I played tennis, I did everything that you could think of.
So is that where you become so sporty?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Now listen, when you were at school, did you have a favourite sport?
I suppose in those days they had rugby, and it was age group to weight, and because I was at the Railway Hotel and I ended up being a little fat boy.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't actually play rugby because I was overweight for my age. So I ended up playing soccer, which I found quite good, and I played other sports as well, like table tennis, and yeah.
Did you have a favourite teacher? Can you remember one that you thought was really good?
Yeah, I did. I think Sister Veronica was my favourite teacher. You know, she thought the good in everyone, and it really taught you a lesson in life that you can never judge a book by its cover. And she always kept on saying, "You've got goodness in you. Please let it come out."
Yeah. If you had a close friend at high school, how would they have described you as a young adult? Oh,
I would say that they would describe me as pretty outgoing, noisy, opinionated. Even in those days, I think I was that sort of person. But with plenty of energy and having good to do things, I dare say.
And here you are at 69, you're still exactly the same.
Yeah, I am.
That's great.
It is. I'm lucky.
Hey, you know, when you were a kid, was there anything you ever wanted to be when you grew up?
I thought of, actually, at one stage, I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. And the reason being is that we had a lot of helicopter pilots that were staying at the hotel, the Rosanowskis, and there's Phil Melzer, who flew in the Vietnam War.
Yep.
And I used to go out to Cockett High and see them bringing in the deer in those days, and they brought in truckloads of it. And I thought, oh, this would be a great job to be a helicopter pilot. You know, I just thought that, but I sort of gave that away after a while.
So, when you went to work, you obviously started in the post office.
Yep.
Where'd you go after that?
Well, I graduated, I dare say, if you could say that, from the postman to the postal counter in the savings section, and the postal, you know, they had lots of mail in those days. And then I went and worked for the Western Savings Bank.
So was the post office, as a kid, I seem to recall having a post office savings account.
Yep.
So that was the area you were in?
Yeah, I was. We changed around and gave you experiences, because when you're from a postman right through to the postal counter where you sold stamps and telegrams, and then you moved to the the savings side of things, and you worked your way up through that. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then you moved to the Western Savings Bank?
Yep.
So who did you work with there?
I worked with Jack Lesley was my boss in those days, and I worked at Kenny Beans was my boss after that.
Right.
And we had a great staff. It was really, really good because they're very outgoing and very progressive. The Western Savings Bank in those days.
And real team spirit, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And the people of the West Coast owned the bank, and you had a pride of actually doing something, and they were involved in lots of things and did lots of things.
I bumped into Ken Beams recently, and he's still up and running, still running Nelson Building Society.
Yes, he is.
And he looks in good nick.
He's an energised battery.
He's great, isn't he?
Yeah, multi-sporter.
So, did you ever have a thought, when you're sort of 40 or 50, as to what age you were going to retire at? Because clearly you haven't retired yet. So there must be a time.
No, I didn't actually. I've been very lucky in all my jobs throughout my life. I've loved going to work. I wake up in the morning and I think, this is good, I'm so lucky. Because today some people go to work and it's a chore for them. They only go there because they're getting paid. I could have taken on some of these jobs and didn't even get paid for it because they were so good and they were so interesting. And being with good staff makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, it's a team thing that helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
How old were you when you first started dating?
Well, I was a late dater actually. I think I was about 24. Yeah, so I was too busy. I was pretty shy really, hard to believe, especially when it comes to women. Yeah, so I was about 24 I think.
So how many kids have you got?
I've got two, a girl and a boy.
Yeah.
My daughter Jo, who lives in England, and my son Mike, who lives in Christchurch.
Well, we've just been all following your tour of England and all sorts of other places over there. Now, did you go to Rome?
Yes, I did go to Rome. Yeah, it was very interesting. It was heck of a hot weather over there at the present time. When I went there and we went to the Vatican, and what a facilities and what's name. It was just overwhelmed to think the day we went there was 33,000 people there, and it was the quietest day that they'd had for the year.
How does it fit them all in?
Well, they had on tour, and you only go through, and you had to go as quick with the tour leader, and they take so many photos. But it was the art and over there, and the history of places like Rome and Paris. It's just incredible, really. New Zealand is a really young country. We don't realise just how young a country we are, do we? Yeah, you're right.
Did you ever meet your grandparents?
I met, yes. I only met Dad's mother because his father died when he was 43, and she was a lovely old lady, Caroline Keenan, and she was the lady that brought up the family at Woodstock at the hotel, and they had it from the Gala Keenan for 82 years. They owned the Woodstock Hotel, and she was a dear old lady.
So, sorry to interrupt, Mike. Is that the Woody?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So we had 82 years of the 130 odd years that the hotel's been going.
Yeah.
From the Gala side, the Keenan side.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I met both Mum and Dad's, my mother's parents, and he come down from Auckland, and Mum looked after him, and basically he come down to die here. So he did, and then Mum's mother come down. She was in Christchurch, and she come across here, and she was one of these ladies that were posh ladies, and she shopped at Ballantyne's, and she thought she was a little bit different from us coasters, really.
Can you recall anything that they said that stuck in your mind, or you're a bit young?
No, I can remember them very well. I can remember one Christmas, she was up at Western Hospital, and we went in. She had a gift for us each, and we had to go in from the oldest to the youngest. And my brother Kevin, the oldest, he went in there and he come back with a tin of fruit. My sister went in there, Colleen, she was next, and she come back with a tin of fruit. Then it was my turn, I'm number 3 in the family, and I went in there, and she had these tins of fruit there, and we could select which one she wanted. So I asked for the pineapple, and out goes the hand, and she slaps me, and she said, "No, you're getting the apricots."
Oh, And that's one of the things that you record.
Yeah, I thought, you beat me to it. But I thought, it taught me a lesson there as well, because sometimes in life you want something but you don't get it, but the apricots were a good substitute.
Yeah, of course they were. Hey, who's the oldest person? Who's the oldest person you've ever met who's still alive? Can you remember?
The oldest person in Hokitika?
Well, that you might have met.
I shouldn't say them, but I've met a couple of locals. I think there was a lady Mrs. Smitham from Fitzherbert Street. She was about 98. She was a great bit of stuff. And an old guy that I'd actually met was Jim Staples, who lived in Rolleston Street, and he was a sprightly old man for his age. He was in his 90s, and he was still doing greenstone carving. And I thought, what a great old guy, had a terrific attitude to life.
Yeah, it's a big thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What, during your lifetime, what's the most interesting or important inventions that you've seen? What's changed?
I think the technology of the cell phone has been incredible. I mean, I went overseas last month and I took some photos and I put them up on Facebook, and the world can see them within a matter of minutes, sort of thing. And it sort of made me wonder and think, wow, ain't we great with technology? And you could ring and talk to people all over the place. I think, from the technology of the old phone, I can remember the exchange here with the party lines, hang on, we got the wrong number, the 437W, and the technology of the phone would be fantastic. And also the computer is really good. I mean, Mr. Google, you can actually look at him for anything in the world, and you're just amazed by that. I'm just,
it's so much harder to tell a porky these days.
But you can't.
Hey, do you remember the first time you saw a TV?
Yes, I can.
What happened then?
I went down, it was on the wharf there, and it was the Philpott boys from up Revel Street. They actually got it screened from Australia, and they had a big TV transmitter, I think it was, from Australia beamed in, and we went down there and we watched I think it was the 1960 or 64 Olympic Games. And what they did on it, because it was snowy, they put a piece of purple thing over it so it didn't look like it was...
I tuned into a colour TV.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
And it was so good. We were just fascinated. How could these people do it? And I think it was either the Tokyo Games and I can remember it. I think, it was so good, because that's where the Western Greenstone factory used to be, down there on the wharf.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
So is that where Bernie and them first started? Was it well before then?
No, the Philpotts had their own place in Revel Street. They were on the corner of Revel and Park Street, and they had a big aerial there, and then they put one down there. And everyone used to go along. It was sort of like walk in, walk out sort of thing, watching the TV. And, from a kid that lived there down to there, it was a piece of cake.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, during your life, did you, so far, have you come across someone who you've met who changed the course of your life?
Yeah, I think there's been a few people actually, Bruce, and I think one of the people that really stand out is Murray Roberts. I can remember, as a young married man and different things, that Murray came along and said to us, I should be on the St. Mary's Parish Council, and I said to him that I haven't got much time. And he virtually told me off. He virtually said, you're a very self-centered bugger. You've got some talents and some skills, why don't you use them? And I went home and I got the puff over there. I thought, buggery, So I went on, and he actually sort of encouraged in his own ways. And I think the other person that I really admired here is Durham Harold. I think that Durham has done an excellent job for Western, and when I was working at the council, he would always come in and see all the staff on a Friday. He'd walk around and ask them, is there any work for him to do? Was any functions that he needs to be at and everything? And I thought he was a real man's man, and I thought he was one of those sort of people that I sort of admired. I think good on him. He's had a lot of flack given to him, but in public office, you just got to be prepared to put up with that.
You have broad shoulders, don't you?
You do.
Now, Murray Roberts is a name that comes up in relation to, like the pensioner flats.
Yep.
In Sewell Street,
Yeah.
the medical centre, the medical trust.
Yeah.
It's been so successful in Otago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall ever being without a doctor.
No, well, he was very lucky because, again, I was on the medical trust as well with Maury when it first started.
So what happened there?
What actually
happened?
What actually happened is the medical centre closed after Len Kitson, and then they were trying to get doctors to come, but they wouldn't. So Maury, stood up and said, look, I'm prepared to mortgage my place out of Blue Spur, and he called on about 10 people in the community and said, right guys, we'll your personal guarantees for this mortgage, and we'll get a doctor. And so that's how it is. And
was that how it started?
Yeah, and the Western Medical Centre Trust, it was called, and we applied through the doctors' union or whatever it may be, and I got a couple of doctors, and they were both Dr. Anna and Dr. Dion Stryden come, and we gave them the option of looking at a 3-year term with the interest rate of nothing for the first year, 3% for the next rate, and 8% for the next. So within a year, that actually paid off the debt that Maury had on his farm, and our personal guarantees were taken over. So they bought the medical centre.
Well, what a great success that's been.
Well, it has, and somebody like Maury who had the foresight and the, I suppose if you could say, the balls to actually put his mortgage on his property up there, and it was really, really good.
Did you ever hear about the Red Dog Saloon?
Yes, I did.
Down in southwestern now.
Yeah.
You and who was it that you always went south with in the Western Savings Bank?
Colin Howard.
And what was the story there?
Well, it wasn't going when the Western Savings Bank were going, but I can remember it because I was part of the 1995 30th anniversary of the Haas Pass opening. And we did a little booklet of stories that were the Haas Pass.
Right.
And Maury pulled out all these sort of things. Wow, talk about laughing. And we had a committee of about 5 people. And again, Maury was the driving force of making it happen. And, he really got the thing. And they did a video of all the people that actually worked on the Haas, from the Fergusons to the Ryan brothers to Maury Roberts himself. And the Rochfords that were part of building the road. And when you look at it, I mean, it was and the rain that one year in October, I think it was, that it just melted down. It must have been the most rain that it ever had in October in Western's history.
Yeah. But
they got ahead and did the thing, and I mean, they wouldn't get away with building a road like that today, but in those days they just did it. And Maury had this camp. And as a young boy, my dad took me down to the camp, and we stayed there one time, and we went to the Blue, and we went, while he went crayfishing with Bill Johnson, and we stayed in the little hut there because with my cousin Dennis Kelly, who was related to Maury Roberts. So yeah, I can remember it.
And that's where the Meraki Wilderness Lodge is.
Yeah, it is. It's ironic that the people that were complaining about knocking over vegetation as a greenie that's actually there and winning awards for the best facilities in New Zealand. So it's ironic, isn't it?
Well, I guess, look, I bump into Jerry McSweeney quite often, and I guess all of us moderate our views over a period of time.
Well, you've got to look at the pioneers, with the roads that have been done and lots of openings. I mean, in those days they were pioneers, and Maury provided work for lots and lots of people in those days. Got them good jobs and made sure that they worked hard like he did.
Now tell me, you and Mr. Howard used to head to Fox once a week in that vehicle and fill it up with money and come home when you're at the savings bank. Did you ever get robbed?
No, we never got robbed, but sometimes we thought of it. Cole was such a great guy for the mobile bank in those days. He was just, he actually was almost a transport operator, because the things that he'd do, he'd pick up things for various people and take them down there and drop them off. And he would provide a wonderful service. And it went right to Haas. So we stopped off at Fox the first night. Then the next morning we went, and there was door to door. We can remember going to the likes of Mrs. Rochford, and I'd go in there and get her to sign, and she'd sign and we'd have the money for her, and we'd stop off at Mrs. Butler's at Bruce Bay, and we'd go to lots and lots of places. We'd pick up one of the people at Meraki there and take him to Harsbury shopping, and we'd do the Harsh businesses, and then we'd come back to Fox that night, and then we'd have to balance up that night, and then the next day we would slowly come back to Hokitika and pick up some more money or change some money. But in those days we had a hell of a lot of money. I won't tell you, because we actually had a vault in the floor, but we actually couldn't put all the money in. We had to put it up above the thing, because we couldn't put it in. I think we put the checks in there because we thought that would be safe in the vault, but we had the money up there, and it was incredible. And we met some interesting people. I can remember I going down there to South one time, and I think it was the Mongrel Mob or the Black Power group were coming down, and they had a police escort, and these guys went from one place and they all walked in, and you thought, would you get robbed and that, and you had to contact back to Hokitika to find out what's in their balance on a radio system. And yeah, we had some wonderful times, and I can remember I used to do Mrs. Butler's tax return for her one day, and Cole Hout on his RT rang up and said, tell Mick that Mrs. Butler's knitted in a pair of jocks. And so, and everyone on the radio system was with the hospital board and other people that shared the radio, couldn't make out how Mrs. Butler knew my size of my jocks. And Cole come into work when he come back on the Wednesday, and he hands over this lovely brown paper bag, and I opened them up, and it was a pair of hand knitted socks.
Oh, socks, not jocks.
And Mrs. Butler was one of the first people in the woolly West Coasters. She made from the fleece right to spinning it to these lovely pair of socks, and I've got these socks to this very, very day. And they must be be 40 odd years old. Yeah, and I've still got them. I haven't used them because I thought they were such a treasure piece.
Yeah, Mike, one of the things that you're particularly well known for is picking up and developing the Hokitika Wild Foods Festival. That was a real adventure, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I was very lucky that, I come in and after the third festival, and it sort of got itself established, but I think credit goes to John Olsen for having the vision to actually take the festival and the event over from the council's point of view. And he looked at it as a tourist attraction, as promoting the area.
Yep.
And, I was very lucky that I was employed for the job. And, we were on a roll, from the festival. I think when I started, there was about 5,400 people and we rocked it up to 2003 to 22,500 people.
What was that? Look, I remember walking the streets the night of the 22,500 people, and there were young people lying comatose on the footpath, and it couldn't have got any bigger, could it?
No, it couldn't have. And we looked at checking it out and saying, well, it's past its limitations. So we decided that we got Lincoln University to come and do a feasibility study on the festival, and looked at what they should need to do by reducing it. But in those days, in 2003, there was no such thing as preloading like they do today, and we didn't have any issues as such, because I suppose we didn't have enough police either. But in those days, people were happy drunks. Today they're more aggressive because they're either on some other substance that don't come out of a bottle, like drugs. Yeah. But those people were, I walked around the festival venue at 5:15, and I was the only sober person at the venue. But yeah, so it's been a terrific brand for Westland and the West Coast. We've had publicity all over the world. We've had from Phil Kogan from The Amazing Race. We've had it in Playboy magazines. We've had it in every magazine you could think of throughout the world. So the publicity for the event as such has been one of the best branding that I've ever had experience with. And
so 27 years ago, when you first went in, here we are now at the 30th anniversary.
Yep.
still running strong.
Yeah.
Numbers around 10,000-ish.
Yeah.
10 or 12,000.
I think 10,000 is a very good limit for the community, and I think everyone could do well out of it. I think 10,000 is a real good limit.
Well, I think one of the things, and you're these days back on the organising committee, and that move to get it back to where it raised funds for 30 or 40 community groups and was a real local event.
Yes.
Has been a great move. It's made a big difference. Now, Mike, tell me, I've often wondered, how did the West Coast Wilderness Trail start? Because you were involved. I've heard different stories, but what was your involvement? Who kicked it off? Where did it come from?
I think it was a joint thing between Paul Brash and myself. Paul was Sports West Coast at the time, and I was in the events department, and we were looking for an event that we could take from Kamara to Hokitika or to Ross, and he'd already done the Central Otago cycle trail, and he thought, what a great idea. So I went down and biked the cycle trail myself, and I thought, wow, we've got to have one of these ourselves. So we started off and we looked at doing the thing. So we started off in Kamara, and we followed a bit of the trail and everything, and then we thought, well, we'd open up the Ruatap to Ross part, and we'd send the PD workers down there, and they, after about 3 weeks, they'd only done about 100 metres and broken about 5 slashes, and I thought, what a pack of lazy buggers. So we went down there with a group of about 13 people, and we had power saws and rakes and everything else, and we did about 150 metres, and the gorse was about, I suppose about 10 foot high, because the railway line from Ruatap to Ross had been closed for 30 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we were very fortunate that somebody come along and wanted to do some exploring from gold, so on condition that I went down with them on the Saturday, and they opened up about 1.5 kilometres, and I said to Maureen Pugh and the Mayor at the time, and also Robin Reeves, who was keen on cycling, we should do this trail. So they gave us the okay, and we'd started it about 10 months before the government announced there was $50 million in the pot. And when they had that money, I thought, wow, we're going to get a slice of that. And Robin, to his credit, gave us a free rein to go out and look at where the trail should go. And I was very fortunate that I went out and most weekends and looked where it was and looked up old tracks and trails and everything else. And it's about 80–90% of the trail where we initially looked at it. And I suppose the only part that it hasn't been done, because they run out of money, of course. When you go on these old tram tracks and everything else, it does cost you money.
Yep.
And the one place that I thought of is from Lake Canary. It was up Ward's Road there. You could have actually gone, and there's a little dip, a gut there. You drop down, you go across Kennedy's Creek and follow the old Canary tram line to come in at the back of the Western Milk Products. So that was where we looked at. We had maps of where the old tram track could go and all those sort of things, and I just see that the council has been offered money to look at a feasibility study for that. So I think that would be terrific to get it off the trail, off the road,
Off Canary
because the feedback of the trail is fantastic. I'm with my job as a shuttle driver for.
But you're retired, aren't you?
No, I'm not retired.
Geez.
Too young to retire.
Yeah, so you must have been pretty excited when John Key announced that he was going to throw $3.5 million at it.
Yeah, I was, and I could see the future of it, actually. It was quite, after seeing Central Otago one, I thought, we've got better facilities and everything else, and when you look at what we've got from Greenmouth to the Tiramacau, it's a coastal route, and then you're looking at from Green to Kamara right up to Cowboy Paradise, that would be the best part of the trail anywhere in New Zealand. And then from Cowboy Paradise to Hokitika, along the water race and back along the Canary tram, it's just fantastic. And the new section that they've just opened up
What's it like?
Oh, fantastic. And credit should go to Chris Deal for the driving force for that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a real driver, and very passionate about making it get off the road, and it's very, very good.
It's been a great winner for the coast.
Yeah, it is.
And huge for Hokitika.
Well, you know, Hokitika benefits. You know, I'm a shuttle driver for the West Coast Wilderness Trail, and we see lots of people from, majority of them are from the North Island actually, and they're here for 4 or 5 days, and you know, they spend very well. You know, if you're a business person in Hokitika in the food industry, and they do buy lots of souvenirs, so they're really, really good spenders.
Look, there's not many days that I don't look out the window and see cyclist after cyclist going along. Now, Mike, you're pretty mean with a squash racket.
I used to be.
And what was the recent induction?
I suppose I'd been involved with squash for, you know, close on 21 years, and when I sort of played table tennis, I thought, somebody said to us, you need to be a bit fitter. So I thought, I went along and played squash, and squash was sort of like, you know, the gentleman's game sort of thing. Like, you know, in those days it was a bit like golf. You know, you had to be somebody or have a few dollars to do it.
Yeah.
But I was a road runner really. I went down there and just went and played people after. Then I got fit basically, and then I watched this gentleman by the name of Trevor Dimmick, who was used to work at the BNZ there, and I watched him from up upstairs and he never moved from the tee, and I thought, wow, that's a nice place to be. He hardly ran, and I thought, gee, where's I'd like to do what he did. So I went down a lot and practiced by myself, you know, just up and down, up and down, up and down, forehand, backhand, and I must have spent hours doing it. And then I really worked out, you know, if you hit the ball there, it'll go there. So, and then I got a lot fitter, and I was pretty thin in those days. So, yeah, I used to enjoy the squash, and the Canterbury Association made me a legion of the sport, which it was very, very nice to be honoured. So for doing, you know, I enjoyed it, and I held a lot of office-bearing jobs, you know, from treasurer right through to club captain and president and from the club, and yeah, I'm a life member of the Hokitika Tennis and Squash Club down there.
Have you won the West Coast Championships for many times, didn't you?
Yeah, I think it was about 11 years. I was trying to remember. I was going back on the old scrapbook albums I had, and I was trying to remember. I couldn't remember. You know, it's ages since I played, to be honest.
And I have to bring it up. The first time I played you in squash, I was pretty good with a tennis racket, and I thought, oh, I'll get this Mike Keenan and give him a bit of a hiding on the squash court. Well, I remember crawling off the court, crawling out into my car, going home and sulking for 3 days. It took me 3 days to recover, Mike. You must have done that deliberately. You had to. Mike, can you remember a time or a place when you felt really at peace, where you went, this is me? Have you ever found something like that?
I've always, you know, sometimes I go for a walk along the beach, and I just think how lucky I am, you know, in life. I really do. You know, there's people value things for different things, whether you've got a good car, a good house and everything. And I just feel so lucky that, you know, my parents taught us good values. And I just thought, just walking along the beach, and you just think how lucky you are. You know, you got everything you want in life. And here you are with nature. We're only, you know, a block away from the beach. We can go to the lake within 20 minutes, and it's all around you. And sometimes we don't see the things that we actually should do.
We don't, and we place values on material things that really, when it comes to the crunch, that actually don't matter. But it's kind of hard to tell the young ones that, because when we were young, we wouldn't have listened.
No, we wouldn't have. And no, I think the greatest thing from my point of view is the friends you got. You know, it's very nice to have friends. You know, I think that's one of the key aspects of my life.
So, Mike, in winding it up, what would you say that you now know about being happy and successful that you didn't know when you were 20?
I think it's just a matter of making the most of every day. You know, when you look at people, I've had 2 brothers this year who've had cancer, one prostrate and one melanoma, and, you know, they've struggled there initially. And then I just think, you know, sometimes we're only on this life for a short period of time, and you've done an interview with a couple of them fairly recently, and you just think, wow, you know, we don't know how long we're going to be here for. And I think, you know, you've got to make the most of life, and I think it's by being positive and doing things, and I get a real buzz out of it, you know. I think it's nice that you've got to give back to the community, and I thank Maury Roberts for that as well, because he taught us that, you know, you can't be selfish, you need to actually give something, and it's like karma, it'll always come back to you. Whether you want it or not, it does.
Well, folks, on that note, that's Mike Keenan, a coaster, and you'll be able to see this interview in a number of sections on Facebook. You'll be able to go to our Coasters Club YouTube channel and you'll see it. And a copy of this interview will also be filed with the Hokitika Museum. So look, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been really interesting, and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Bruce.